Hey, this is the Stephen Adams Show. This is our new podcast called Intune Training. I don't know if it's a podcast or a video web series thing. It's going to be a recorded video that's going to show us clicking through some wizards to show you magical things about Microsoft Intune. I am Adam. I'm Adam Gross. I run the blog Square Dozen. In my day job and night job, I mostly wrangle config manager, specializing in desktop and operating system deployment things. And this is Steve, and he's all the way across the world in Sydney, Australia. Hey,
How you
Steve.
going? So I'm Steve Hosking. I work for a company called Vigilant IT. What I do for a living is manage and maintain Intune environments, SCCM environments, and deployment. I'm an MVP in device management with Microsoft, and have been spending quite a lot of time around this technology, doing automation and everything around that. So what today we're going to talk through is how we can set up a new test tenant for people who haven't really played around with Intune before, and start that whole engagement and go on that journey of, well, what do I need to do to play? And Adam here, he's new to the whole Intune world, obviously, as he's very much involved in SCCM today and OSD, and we figured this is a great way for people to ask the questions that they didn't think they'd need to ask. So without much further ado, unless you've got any other comments, Adam, I think we'll start stepping into it.
No, I think this is great. Let's go.
Cool. So what we're going to start off today is we've registered a domain name with Google. It's Intune.training, and what the first thing we're going to set up is how to get an Intune tenant. So most of our stepping points are going to start off with docs.microsoft or docs.ms, and this is a great way to learn what you need to do for Intune and how you do device management and everything around that, as well as AAD and all of the other components that Microsoft publish up there. Probably an important thing to call out here. If you find anything that you don't like or don't agree with on Microsoft's docs.microsoft.com page, you can edit, and it will go to a GitHub repo that contains that information. So don't sit there and go, their documentation's wrong. Go and fix it.
And even if you don't know how to fix it, you can go and file feedback on that same page and put an issue in, and the editors will review that and address it for you.
Yep. And the Microsoft team are very interested in you doing that. They want you to capture that information. They want to be able to sit there and review it, because it helps them make it better.
I did it just yesterday on the, I was working through co-management, and some of the steps were out of order, and just went in and changed the numbers around and submitted the pull request, and hopefully we'll see that change real soon.
Yep. And I've done it a couple of times with config manager documentation for certificates and things like that, and it is really worth doing it. It's really good contribution to the community.
Plus, you get your little face right up there on the contributors.
Up there in the bar, yes.
But that's not why we're here.
No, not at all. So what we're going to step into is the Intune sign up page. So we're sitting under sign into Intune, and this is where we're signing up for the first time. So it's important we click on the link here, and we step into that Intune sign up page. If you've ever signed up for Azure Active Directory or any of the other technologies, this will be a very familiar page. This is where you select your on Microsoft account name and everything associated around that. What it also gives us is the ability to build out your AAD tenant. If you've already got a test tenant, you don't need to do this step. You can just go and get a trial subscription associated to your tenant. And that's where, if you already have an existing, you just do sign in up here. But we don't have a subscription.
So Steve, can you so you mentioned, okay, we've got an Azure Active Directory tenant already, but maybe we don't have Intune. Can you describe because Intune kind of lives in Azure, and so does Azure Active Directory, and so there are various bits here, and they kind of all have a hierarchy. Can you talk through what that structure is for a minute?
Yep. Not a problem at all, Adam. So what we're looking at with Azure Active Directory, think of it as a platform that is built on the Graph API. So the Graph API has components that get bolted in there and enabled depending upon your licensing level. So you could have an Azure Active Directory tenant just to manage your Azure subscriptions. And then you say, all right, well, I now need to have, say, Office 365 emails associated with that. So you turn on that feature, or you turn on that subscription, or you buy a license for that, or you get a trial. This is the same with EMS and Intune and Azure Active Directory P2 and all these components. They are bolt-on licenses that sit atop that platform. So this is why it's all try what you want, don't renew what you don't want, and it all just works that way. If that makes sense, Adam?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. So we've got our page here. I'm just going to zoom that in a little bit to keep everybody happy and a little bit easier to read. I'm going to select my country because I've got the control of the mouse. So I'm in Australia, and we're going to give it a name. If I can spell my name right. Here you need to put an existing business email address. This account will be given admin access to the tenant, and it'll have full control of what you're doing in there. The reason why you have this account is it's your emergency account. It's if you have any problems. So I don't have a business phone number, so I'm just going to fill out 10 random numbers and populate that information. You should always put your real phone number in there, because that gives you the ability to have support calls come through to you. It gives you the ability for MFA on that account or the new account created. And the company name that, sorry, Adam?
I think that's only 8.
Oh, sorry. I can't count today. It's been a long day. All right, so for a company name, we're going to do Intune.training because that's our new entity, and we're 2 to 4 people. So nice and easy on the first page. In the next page, this is where we create our first user account. And I'm going to be the first user, and it's going to be Steve. Actually, we're going to do Steven. And it is Intune Training. Let's see if that's available. How nice is that? So
now let's stop here for 1 minute and mention that this is the most critical piece to put in when you are creating this. If you have never created your Azure Active Directory tenant, or maybe if you've created one in the past and you've said, wait, how did that get created? This is where a lot of people mess up, is you don't know that this is going to happen, or in the past it required you to use a personal email address to sign up, and you just got your email address on Microsoft.com. So this is what you get forever until you have to rebuild a whole new tenant and to get rid of this name.
Yeah, that's right. So how that works is this is also your SharePoint name. So if you're using SharePoint Online, when we create our SharePoint site, it'll be intunetraining.sharepoint.com. So if you use for whatever reason, if you've just gone, I'll just put like Bob's Car Wash Incorporated Proprietary Limited on Microsoft.com, that's what your customers and staff are going to have to type in there. So it's really important that you set this up in a way that is useful.
And also, if you go to share, so if you're sharing documents, and so if I have my OneDrive for Business and I share a link, it doesn't show a link to my website or to my company name. It shows a link to this URL that you put in here. So so if it doesn't match, it could get quite confusing. So like I know on mine, I have my personal email address was what I used, and so my tenant name doesn't match my domain name that I'm sharing from, and so it's the URL that you get on my shared things don't match, and it's kind of strange.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's one of those things that it's just a matter of making sure it's taking that attention to detail when setting it up. So obviously we're going to put our secure password here, and I think they match. I'm just going to retype. Yep. And Ideally, if you're going to be using any of the Microsoft platforms or anything like that, if you're needing help or assistance, eventually you tick these boxes. We're not going to. I'm a Microsoft partner. Adam does work with the Microsoft partner, so we don't need that information. So we're now creating this. I'm just going to, yep, I'm going to save that. And I'm going to get this to text me. What I might do is, give me a second. I'm just going to hide my phone number here. So.
Oh, come on, Steve.
Not everybody needs to see my phone number while I sort this out. And I'm just going to have that text me a number. And I need to turn my phone back on because I turned it off because I am doing podcast etiquette. So just bear with me. So what I'll quickly do. So now you'll see here, I've just got to put in the code that's been sent to my mobile phone. So just bear with me, I'm just loading that up. And there it is. And it's 442016. So this is validating that, as Microsoft has put it here, proving that you're not a robot. They don't want a heap of people going and deleting and recreating accounts and just spamming their service. So this is where you need to put in their phone number. Previously it was provide a credit card number, and everybody was like, but I've given you my credit card number, that I don't trust you with that. So it was like, cool, okay, let's do a multi-factor on your mobile phone or an email address or something that is not going to appear to have charges associated with it.
Yeah, and what's great is you can create multiple tenants. I mean, you're not burning the email or even the phone number that you're sending to. You can create multiple tenants, especially now that you can you can customize the domain name there. You know, it's great so that you can spin up new things and test new things out as you run out of credits on your trial subscription, or if you want to try something different or new with a different tenant or client or something.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty cool like that. So what we're going to do here is, so we'll see, we've got to save this info for later, but it's just portal.office, and we just need to know our email address that we've created there, which is the intunetraining.onmicrosoft.com. So right now, any account that we create in that tenant can only have that UPN. So if we go, you're ready to go, we hit the arrow, it'll take us to that next step. And it'll take a little bit of time to load in for the first time because it's still setting everything up in the background. So from an Intune point of view, we're just going to go back to portal.office.com as a starting point, and we'll wait for it to load up. And what we'll see is all of our domains and everything associated to that. So it's just going to load up for a second. And I recommend turning on the preview portal. I really like it.
I agree. Now, Steve, I noticed that we signed up for Intune, but now we're at the Office portal.
Yes.
What's the deal there? Why are we on the Office admin page?
So the reason why we've gone to the Office admin page is because it gives us a little bit more control over, say, licensing and billing. While you can do a lot of this in portal.azure, and we will primarily spend most of our time there, when we're setting up everything initially, it's a lot easier to set up domains in Office. And to be honest, this is where I've learned how to do all of this. And only recently, so in the last 6 months, has Microsoft added the ability to do domain names in Azure AD. So in the actual Azure portal itself.
We went to the off.microsoft.com URL, but now we're at the admin.microsoft.com, and it's the Microsoft 365 admin portal or admin center. And so I think that's showing us because months ago this was still Office centric, Office specific, and now we're starting to see that branding of Microsoft 365 and seeing that the full picture of what this is going to look like.
Oh, definitely, and that's where it all works on that whole story around everything's coming back to M365 or Microsoft 365. And it's probably something that we'll go through a little bit further on a later podcast. But when it comes to that licensing story, Microsoft 365, Office 365, EMS, AAD P1, P2, E3, E5, it all becomes this big conversation of how you want to handle that. So it's a bigger conversation. It's something that we'll talk through at depth on a future podcast, I'm pretty sure, because it's something a lot of people need to understand or want to understand.
Absolutely.
So what I've done here is I've selected the Add Domain button here, and it now pops up this blade. So I'm just going to type in intune.training, and we're going to hit next on that. The next step is it's going to say, all right, well, you'll see straight away, it's like, oh, look, it's actually with Google Domains. Automatically, it tells us it's with Google Domain. So we can go step-by-step instructions, and it gives us that process on how to set it all up. So we've already signed in over here, and we've got our DNS, and I'm going to do something fancy here and do it side by side. So we now have we've signed in, we're at our DNS page, and we want to go to Custom Resource Record, which is this tab here. And I'm just going to grab this over here. And we need to create a custom record, and we want to do a TXT record. So we're going to so we're going to do copy to clipboard, and we want to TXT.
Drop that. There you go.
And we want to set this to paste, and the TTL is this field here, which is the default of 1 hour. So I just hit add, and you'll see the records there, and we hit verify on the right hand side. So this is still the Microsoft 365, and it's still waiting for it to appear there. What we'll do as well while we're here is we're going to add in the MX record as well. The reason why we'll add in the MX record is it gives us more flexibility when we go forward, getting emails and everything associated to that. Although this is still just verification level. So we paste that in, and we hit add. Adam, do you remember if there's a save feature in Google?
No, I don't believe so. These are just automatic.
Okay. So we just hit verify.
If you notice at the top there, it tells you the little yellow bar.
Fantastic. So what we'll see here, I've just full screened the Office page again, and our domain is now set up. So we're all working through that. So if we hit finish. Yep.
Isn't that fantastic? We didn't even skip the video for this.
That's right. And that's it. Like, this is how easy it is to set it up. So what we're going to now do is we're going to go to active users, and we'll see that the account that I created earlier is here. And I'm going to select this, and we're going to manage the username on that. And we're now going to go to intune.training. So I now have my Stephen@intune.training account. So what I'll also set up while I'm here is a new account for Adam. And Adam will change his password as soon as he sees it on the screen. Yes, and he needs to change his password on first time. Right now we only have Intune licenses, and over time we'll be able to turn on more features, and that's part of how we set it up. So you'll note up the top here, you need to set a location. This is really important. If you don't set a location, the licenses won't apply to your user account. Be it Office 365, be it Intune, or anything associated with the Azure platform, you need to have that location associated to you. If you don't, it doesn't apply. So when you're creating an account and licenses, an account in Azure Active Directory, it will have issues in there. Right now, though, I'm actually going to do a little bit different. We're actually going to say, look, we're going to create it without any licenses, though. And I'll go through why in a second. We're going to hit next. We're going to turn that off because we don't need it. And we're going to go next. We'll be polite to Adam and try and give him global admin, but it's not giving us the ability. Okay, we won't. And we'll hit finish adding. So that's your password, Adam. Go in and change it. Let me do this. Just bear with me. So we've completed that process. So Adam has an account, and what you'll see here is it is unlicensed. So this is where we're actually going to go across to portal.azure. Based on that conversation we were having earlier, portal.azure is for where we can do some advanced Azure Active Directory components and Intune management itself. So right now we're going to go to Azure Active Directory, and you'll see there's a whole heap of stuff here, right? Fantastic. We're going to create a security group. And this security group is going to be called, it's a security group, and it's going to be called Intune License. And it's going to be an assigned, we don't care about owners, but we want to set Adam and myself as members of this group. We're going to create this group, and we now select it. And if we now see this button here, let's zoom in a little bit for you, Adam. You'll see that there is the option to select licenses. And why is this important?
Notice that Stephen spelled license in a strange way. That's because he lives in a different country that spells things strangely.
And we use metric.
Oh, yeah, all those things.
But what you'll see here, we'll go back a step here. What we've selected is the assign license button. And this gives us the ability now to select any licenses we have associated. Right now, this subscription only has the Intune license. But if we have all these different licenses associated here, we can actually select them all. So if you've got Office 365 and you've had them manually assigned over the years, if you look at all of your different user accounts, they've all got different features and settings turned on for that Office 365 configuration. If we assign those permissions to a security group, it's always consistently configured. So you don't have to worry about a new employee starting or an old employee having settings not turned on by default. So it's a really cool feature. It's just coming out of preview right now. And this will go through and assign those licenses to both myself and Adam's accounts. So if we now go back to Intune training and we select users and we go to Adam and we select licenses, you'll see there's no licenses, but if we reprocess, and we'll see that Adam now has a license associated to him via that security group. And you'll see that the assignment path is inherited via that security group. If I go and select my account and I go to licenses and I reprocess and refresh, right now you'll see that I have it assigned via direct and inherited. Because my account was the first one created in the environment, it assigned it directly, but we are also now assigning it via an inherited. So how many licenses do you think are consumed at this point, Adam?
3.
So you're saying 3. If we go to licenses.
I mean, total in mine and yours and yours.
Yep. So that's not actually accurate right now, but it's only 2.
Oh, man.
So it combines them if they're direct and inherited, which is really good because it means that it allows you to sit there and have that little bit of control of, all right, well, I actually want this person to have it assigned this way and this way. because they did testing and then they did this or they did that. So I'm just going to remove my direct assignment, and it will leave the security group assigned there. And you'll see straight away it's changed it just to inherited. So the next thing that we're going to quickly go through today is around branding. So company branding, a lot of companies sit there and go, but why do I need to do this? The most important reason for why we want to do company branding and corporate branding in Intune and AAD today is that magical thing called autopilot. If you don't have company branding set up, autopilot won't actually appear in the UI. So we're just going to quick.
Steve, I have, before we go into branding, I have a quick question. So was recently in a conversation with some folks about why branding is a terrible security hole for your company, and how you can very quickly tell if you've found the login for a particular company or something like that because of, let's say we put the company logo branding on the portal and someone goes to the sign-in page and types in the a random email address and it pops up our Intune.training logo. And so now they know they found the right portal, and now they can hack away at that. So why would we want to brand that if we're concerned about our corporate security?
Yeah, and that's actually a really good question, and this is something that I've worked at a number of companies where they're like, we don't actually want corporate branding because we don't want to be sitting on an airplane and somebody looking over and going, oh, you work for that company, can you get me this? Or I don't like what you're doing. And that's the legacy of thinking of it. This is 10 years ago, but today, yes, around this company branding and the hackability, well, while if it's something that you're using Azure Active Directory as an example, I agree that as soon as you have something change or pop up like that, it's going to sit there and say, look, we know that that's Adam's account, or we know that that tenant is that tenant, but you're also handing out those email addresses. So it comes back to the question of, well, we already know that at Intune.training account exists. So it also comes down to the Microsoft security platform that sits behind it. And this is around, they have some really rich understanding and technology built into that platform to make it secure. If you're running your own on-prem ADFS as the authentication, because you want to keep your identity inside your domain for your Office 365, I'd actually be sitting there and asking the question of, do you think it's more secure than what Microsoft's going to be doing? Do you maintain it? Do you have 50, 100 people sitting there and making sure that your ADFS server isn't getting hacked? And if you are, or even if you do have that number of people, why are you doing that when Microsoft's doing it as part of their licensing agreement? So yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying, because it is something where it allows you to validate that domain exists. But if you're handing it out on business cards, that sort of does it as well.
That very, very good point.
So what we're going to do is we're going to
bring it around on your shirt or your backpack or all the other company branding that you do that you don't even think about.
Yep. Oh, we're going to put it on our website. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your email address, yes. Oh, so you're going to have an accounts at companyname.com.au, so your accounts billable can receive invoices. Yes. I don't see a security hole there at all. So I've banged up a
flavored coach like an onion.
Yes. So what I've created here is I've created a couple of banners and icons to put in there, and they're too big.
Ooh.
For that one, let's see if we can do the dark one is better. Nope.
So close.
Should have really checked this before we actually jumped in and did it.
But where would be the fun in that?
Exactly. Just bear with me.
I watched him do this earlier, folks. It's going to be exciting.
We're just going to resave our files into a lower format.
Well, you know what? This is actually a great point. At some point, you're going to come to this company branding thing, and you're going to have to do this. And you're going to run into this exact problem, because what are the chances that your company has the exact right sized and formatted logos that you need to shove in here? So we've all had to do it at this point. So
yes, we have.
Why not watch Steve do it live?
And we're just going to export it, and we're going to save for legacy. And we are going to...
See, you gave it the right sizes and everything.
I did.
No. Maybe the portal doesn't know. Maybe it's adding some extra pixels. You just shrink it by one on each.
Hang on. I'm just going to try and find the specs again. Make sure you put Azure Active Directory. And we'll see here, these are all the specs that they provide you. And it should be less than 300 kilobytes. So if I go to my pictures directory.
Yeah, so I think your dimensions are correct. I think just the file size might be too large.
I think so. Let's go here.
No, they're small too.
Yep.
So go back to the error that it had on the screen. I think it told us the dimensions were. Oh, look at that. Wait, no.
Yep.
Oh, the banner is different. Yeah.
It changed my dimensions.
Sure did.
So when I created my artboard in Illustrator, obviously when I exported it, it decided to overscale it. There we go, people. That's a learning experience right there.
You could be using Paint to do this as well.
Yes. Not everybody has the fancy licenses to Illustrator. I agree, Adam.
However, I would highly recommend that you engage your corporate branding or marketing team when you're doing this, so that because these will be the pictures and things that brand your online M365 presence moving forward. And so so you do want them to meet your company's specs and everything. So it's kind of important.
So it's not going to work. Export, save for web. And look, it's all right.
Unbelievable.
And we want it to be a PNG 24. And it's optimized. Yes. Save.
Oh, it's the banner that was the wrong size, though.
Both of them were, unfortunately. And it's going to replace that one. Yes. And then I'm just going to quickly open up the banner one as well. And we're going to export for layer. Yep. Perfect. And save. And we're going to replace that file. And when you get asked to create the dark one, what you do here is, whoop, it's not what I wanted. And delete it. All you do is copy, paste them in there, and and you'll note that I'm making sure that I don't have any spaces in my file names. People who put spaces in their file name have a very comfortable place in hell, in my opinion. Just putting it out there to everybody who does that. So we're going to grab the dark ones, and we're going to open both of those. And this is a new trick I learned today. We go to replace color, and we're going to start with the white, and we're going to change it to dark.
Oh, if only your corporate logo was so easy to manipulate.
Hey, mine is. And we
come for the Intune, stay for the Photoshop.
Exactly. And we're going to change this to dark. And we hit OK. And we close. So now we close out of that. And we can go back to our Intune training. So we now scroll down and we grab our banner logo, and we're going to go with the white one. And it works this time.
Woo!
Woohoo, go team!
And the internet rejoices.
And this is the bright one, and this is the dark one. And it cuts our whole heap of text off. Oh, actually, I think we're good.
Works good. It's very nice.
Yeah.
You can't read it, but it's all there.
Yeah. Hey, I'm pretty happy about that. What I'd also recommend is putting in here the username hint. So if you don't have company branding of logos, or your company hasn't provided them to you, the minimum that you need to put in here is just put the username hint. So name at Intune.training, and it's just a nice little thing for your staff to be able to see, oh, that's what my email address should be if they go to a page that is from internal. You can
I just put username hint. It's
yep.
Not useful.
The other option here is you can say, look, allow people to remain signed in. Don't be that guy. Let your staff save their passwords. Unless you're in like a very secure facility, let them save their password.
Oh, bless you. Bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So now that's saved and we've created the branding. I think that covers off everything that we were planning to go through in this session, Adam. Is there anything else you'd like me to go through?
Well, so at this point, we now have, basically we should have an Azure Active Directory base tenant with Intune, with an Intune license, and we're in a trial, so we have a 3-month trial to be able to assign up to 25 Intune licenses out and begin testing Intune. And so from here, we've now created mine and yours accounts to be able to log in, and we've created the company branding to be able to see that as we move forward. And so now whenever I go to my login screen, I should be able to see that company branding, or as we move forward into doing autopilot and things like that, we'll also see those things. So at this point, you should be, if you followed along, you should now be able to, you could have probably followed along in real time and be sitting at the same place we are at this point and be able to begin testing out Intune. And,
quite easily.
So yeah, I think this is a great stopping point for this segment, and move on to the next one.
Yeah, so I have one more thing that I'll add in there, Adam, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the last thing that we're going to link in between our tenants, well, being AAD and our mobile device management platform, is this in AAD in the Azure portal. Let me just zoom in a little bit more. You have this mobility option here. We need to select this, and we need to select, okay, I don't have AAD premium licenses associated. So what this gives us is the ability to have it so it automatically enrolls a device. So you'll see it here twice, and in this section here, there'll be an option to turn it on for all users, and it'll just work.
clarify for me, because I think one of the major sticky points that most people that I've encountered, and myself included, is the licensing bit. And I don't expect you to go into great detail on the different licensing structure, because that's very complex. But so we have an Office 360. We have Office licensing, and you can get all sorts of different Office licensing. Then you have Intune licensing, and then you have Azure Active Directory licensing, and then you have enterprise mobility and security licensing, plus. It keeps going and going.
And then you have M365 licensing, then you have Power BI licensing, then you have, and everything associated around that. So I think let's break it down and do that easy conversation. We're going to step across here, and we're going to have a quick look at our products and services that are available to us today.
Well, and I think the thing that I would love to know more of is, so with what we've just put in place, if we just were to say, okay, you know what, we like Intune, we want to continue forward with those licenses only. So you just showed this enrollment screen, and it looks like, well, I can't enroll devices into Intune, but I don't believe that's true. It means that we can't auto enroll them.
That's correct. So it's just
a premium subscription.
Yeah. So as if you're just using Intune by itself, that's correct. You'd be having to manually assign those licenses and do that work, which is not the best option. And this is where we start then looking into things like Microsoft 365, Office 365, and all of the add-ons that are associated to that. So probably the one that I like calling out as the big difference between, say, Microsoft 365, which is a big conversation point that a lot of people are hearing about. You'd be hearing with your company where, like, we've got our EA, but we want to move across to the cloud model. What are the options we have? When we're being offered M365 or Office 365, and then we've got to buy EMS, then we need to buy this, and then we need to buy that, and then we've got all of these add-ons. So let's start off at that base level. We have Azure Active Directory has 3 tiers that we really care about, which is the free one, P1, which is Premium 1, and P2, which is Premium 2. Premium 1 is what you get with anything that has the E3 license associated to it. Premium 2 is anything that has the E5 license associated to it. At a very easy high-level conversation, whether it's Office 365 E3 or Microsoft 365 E3, you're going to have either P1 or P2 depending on that license SKU. P1 gives you what most people need from a licensing point of view. You get with the P2 licensing, you get features like privileged identity management. You get a whole heap of additional components that they're great, but they're only required for either very senior senior resources in the organization, or your IT administrators that are going to be going in and doing potentially dangerous things to your tenant. Is why I'd be sitting there and saying get E5 over E3. So you can mix all of your licenses from E3, E5, and E1. E1 is your frontline workers. These are the people that don't have a full computer. They're typically working on their mobile phone, and they don't need to have that extra stuff. We could do a whole session on licensing and then some. But what I'd be recommending to most people is, if you're starting to look at the Microsoft platform for device management, for Windows 10 management, for Office management, go and start looking at this Microsoft 365. It gives you the licenses for all of the Office suite here. So we'll notice here, this is the Microsoft 365, this is Office 365 and Microsoft 365 E5. And as we scroll down, you'll see all of the additional features and components that are there. And you have these plan twos. These is where you have mailboxes associated, and you're allowed to get Office on your client side. Audio conferencing and phone system, these are relatively new, not really a big thing. And here's the P1 to P2 conversation. So Oh, Office 365 E3. They've taken P1 off it. Interesting.
Well, that's because it's an Office subscription then.
Yeah.
Azure subscription. And I forwarded over in the chat there, Steve. I sent over the other matrix that is the Azure Active Directory matrix as well. And so, and we can include the link in the descriptions for the videos. But so this gives you a lot more description of, this is just what's included in just the Azure Active Directory component of this. This doesn't include, so this is what's inside of the Office, or the Microsoft 365 E3 and Microsoft 365 E5. You could then compare when you get to that Azure Premium P1, Premium P2. You'd come to this matrix and see what all is included specifically in those. And then there's additional matrices that include Azure Active Directory for the EMS SKU, if you go that route or whatever. So this is where you really need to get with your Microsoft account rep and talk through what's available for your site. And I mean, the big thing is you don't have to buy all of the same licenses for all of your users. You can break it up. You can switch it up to things. What's great is, so for instance, I do this stuff in just my lab, and I have one license for Azure. I have one EMS E3 license and an Office license as well. And so that's all I need. If I want to autopilot devices, I can create as many test users in my lab as I want, and have them synced up and give them accounts, but I can't log into Azure and I can't autopilot with that account when I'm doing that in my lab. But so you just think about what those users are going to be doing, like Steve's saying about your frontline workers versus your folks doing more technical things on the back end. So anyway, yeah, this definitely gets into a much deeper conversation, but I think it's important to begin educating yourself on it and say, you can't just say, oh, it's licensing. I don't know. You really need to know what's in here, because you may see a feature and not know that you maybe already are entitled to it, or you might not even need to buy anything if it may already just be included. And being able to come in and check and see what's being included or what's being added to your license is also a great thing, because I think they're adding new features regularly and rolling them into the different SKUs. So there's a lot of things that are available to you just right out of the gate that you can start leveraging.
Oh, definitely. Like 100%. There's so much that is available. The other thing to note is you don't have to have licenses assigned to every user in your tenant as well for Azure Active Directory. So you can have global admins that don't have any licenses associated to them. I don't recommend that. Like if you're going to, in production environments, if you're going to be running global admin accounts, I highly recommend having that E5 license, because it gives you the ability to start using PIM, which is the just-in-time access permissioning for user accounts and admin accounts, where they can elevate their account to that higher level of authentication. It's a really important thing. It covers off a lot of security and compliance conversations as well.
And also, if you're at an education facility, or I believe even nonprofits, I believe you guys get completely different pricing SKUs on this stuff. This stuff's even free. A lot more of it is free to you than for the corporate folks. So if you're unaware of those things, definitely reach out to a Microsoft account rep on those things as well, because you can definitely benefit from getting some of that, leveraging some of that more affordable pricing. And honestly, once you start testing this stuff out, you're gonna find you just can't live without it. I mean, this stuff is fantastic and amazing, and it's constantly improving. And I just, the fact that before we started this podcast today, Steve and I spent a ridiculous amount of time messing around with Teams, trying to set up our recording, and just the thought that just a couple of years ago, this was impossible to even share out our screens without paying some astronomical price for a service to be able to do that. And today we can just click a button, and even all of our audio is coming straight through He's literally across the world, 15 hours away on the other side of the world, and yet here we are, real time live streaming, recording all of this stuff, and this is just one of the bits that is included in this stuff.
Yeah, and I'd agree with Adam on that. This stuff is really important to understand what you have access to and how it all works. Like what we're actually using today is a good example of that. This is the Teams live event component, where it gives us the ability over time to actually give you live streaming of what we're working on, and while we're talking through what we're doing, you can see us real time, but then it also gives us a copy of it on stream, which we can then go do live transcriptions on. So it's really powerful stuff. And that's probably the big takeaway that I'd be throwing in there, is this whole platform is really straightforward to use, but it takes a bit of time to understand it. We did spend a lot of time this morning playing around with this sort of stuff and creating multiple different accounts and playing around with meetings, and I hope that it comes out as a good session for everybody to see here.
Absolutely. Well, let's wrap this one up and get started on the next one. I'm excited, Steve.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited about this one, Adam. I think it's going to be a good series, and let's hope everybody watches it. So
absolutely.
Thanks everybody, and we'll talk soon.